Hey there. Well, today we are carrying on our Pursuit of Godliness series. And last time Steve Beamond talked to us about, are we an owner or a steward? Actually, do we understand that all of our resources, our time, our treasure, our talents, actually they're not things we own, they're things that God has entrusted to us to steward. And he helped us think about what difference that might make if we saw ourselves as a steward. Well, in the messages to come, we're going to be thinking about time management. But today, in this Pursuit of Godliness series, I want us to think about our finances. And the question I want to ask is, are we a steward or a slave? Now, I know that talking about finances, well, anywhere, particularly in our British culture, if that's where you come from, can be a little bit of an awkward moment. But let me just lay out a few markers. Let me maybe give you a few free passes today. So often when we talk about money, we can think, those rich people, if they just paid their taxes, right? I mean, those billionaires, if they just stop moving all their wealth offshore, those multinational corporations, if they just stopped making all of these, exploiting all the loopholes and just paid what they should do, then society would be fairer. Then we could fix our public sector. Then there'd be enough money for the NHS. It's the rich's responsibility. I don't disagree in a lot of those areas. But I just want us to think about, well, who is rich? I don't feel particularly rich or wealthy. You might not feel particularly rich or wealthy, but what would the Bible say? 1 Timothy 6:8 says, if we have food and clothing, we will be content. See, actually, to a Bible worldview, and actually to a global worldview, and even more shockingly in our country now, actually if you've got enough food in your cupboards at home to last you through the week, you're doing pretty well. Actually, if you know when you can go shopping next for more food and you know that the money's going to be in the bank in order to do that shop, by global standards, by biblical standards, actually you're in the category of the rich. If you've got enough clothing that actually you don't have to do any washing for the next 3-4 days and you're still going to have clothing to wear, well then by biblical standards, by global standards, you are in the rich. If the property that you're sleeping in this week, you're 99% sure you're going to be sleeping in that in a month's time, whether it's your own or rented, you're in kind of the rich. To a Bible worldview, the poor are those who don't have food today. The poor are those who need to borrow a blanket so they can stay warm tonight. And a lot of us don't like feeling or thinking that we're in the rich because we feel squeezed at the moment. But actually a lot of us are. You might not be. If genuinely food is a concern for you, heating, clothing, housing is a concern for you, you absolutely get a free pass in a lot of what I'm going to say today. And at the end, I'm just going to give you some things that maybe we could do to help you. But if you do have food, clothing, then we are in the rich. Second free pass I want to give today, if you're not a follower of Jesus. If you're not a follower of Jesus, a lot of what I'm going to say might not really make much sense. It might not compute for you. That's completely okay. But let me just help you here that those who follow Jesus, we're the ones who say we love him with all our heart, with all our mind, with all our soul, with all our strength. We love Jesus. And when you love someone, it shows on your bank statement. I was 17. Helen was 19. We met on holiday. I absolutely thought I was falling in love with her. She lived north of London. I lived in Solihull. So I convinced her to meet me after our holiday. I drove to Milton Keynes. Not saying anything against Milton Keynes. We ate pasta. I don't like pasta. And we went bowling. I am rubbish at bowling. But you know what? I did not have a problem paying for the petrol to Milton Keynes, for the pasta in the restaurant, for the bowling. Why? Because I thought I was in love. Fortunately, Helen didn't feel the same, and I did mind having to pay for the petrol home from Milton Keynes that night. Helen, if you're watching, I applaud your life choices. You did good, well done. When I met Liz, who became my wife, she was going off to uni in Manchester when we first started dating, and I wasn't earning much money at the time, but you know, to put petrol in the car, to drive up to Manchester, then to drive back again, felt like a joy. Because when you love someone, it impacts the way you do life. It impacts how you spend your money. So if you're not in the rich, you have a genuine worry about your food, your clothing, and your housing, or you don't love Jesus, then you get a free pass for today. But if you are in the rich and you do love Jesus, this message is for us. Let's get into it. I've got 3 things for us to think about today. And the first one is this: you cannot steward that which you serve. You cannot be a steward of that which you serve. Hebrews 13:5 says this. It says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. I wonder what financial freedom would mean for you. I read a Forbes article in preparation for this, and it said financial freedom is anything from not living paycheck to paycheck to having enough money to travel wherever you want and do whatever you want at any point. I think I know which definition of financial freedom I would prefer. In fact, just before the recent school holidays, a friend sent us a website where if you bought a lottery ticket, you could put a code in and get discounts for family days out. And I was like, Jesus, this is my moment. This is my moment to win the lottery and become a millionaire. And I've got a valid excuse as to why I was playing the lottery. But you know, how many millions would I need for financial freedom? Because I reckon I could get through quite a lot quite quickly. Actually, the Bible says financial freedom is not having so much money that you can do whatever you want without thinking about it. Financial freedom is being free from having to serve money. The writer to the Hebrews says, keep your way of life free from the love of money. Jesus says in Matthew 6:24, you cannot serve 2 masters. You cannot serve both God and mammon. By mammon, he's talking about that financial kind of spirit or financial philosophy that we're a slave to it and we have to have more and more and more. And Jesus says you can't serve both. So I've really thought about this in my own life. How do I know that I'm not a slave to the love of money? How do I know that I'm free from that I'm keeping my way of life free from being a slave to finances? For me, it boils down to 2 things. I wonder if these 2 resonate with you. They are choices and security. Choices and security. Here's what I mean by choices. It's so easy to fall into a victim mindset or a slave mindset. If only I had a bigger house. If only I lived in a better area. If only we could have better holidays. If only we had this or that. Rather than saying we are making choices with the resources that we have. Let me give you an example. When we were first married and had our first child, Frankie, we lived in a 2-bedroomed house. And we said to ourselves, we need a bigger house in order to extend our family. We need it. What was interesting was we sold the house to a family who come from a different culture to us. And as they walked around the house, they were like, wow, our 2 children can sleep in this room. Wow, our parents can sleep in the lounge. This house is huge. And we were saying, we feel this house is too small for 3. You think it's huge for 6. We have made choices that we would like more space. We would like something bigger. So we could still live, all 4 of us, in the house we were in and actually have more disposable income month by month, but we have made a choice. We invested into our house and did some renovation work one year, which meant rather than camping in France for our holidays, we camped in England. And it rained and it was cold. And it would be so easy to sit there and go, oh, I wish we could be doing this. But we had to say to ourselves, no, we made a choice to put our money here. And so that means we're choosing now to do this. Now, I accept that Bill Gates can make more choices than I can. And I fully accept that maybe I can make more choices than you can. But here's what I've found. I've sat with people whose household income is 3-4 times more than in my life. And here's what they'll say to me, yeah, but I had to have that car. Because that's the safest car, right? But I have to live in this area because that's going to be good for my children, right? But we have to do this. And here's the issue. It's not always about how much is coming in. Slaves feel like they don't have a choice. Stewards understand I make choices about what I do with my resources. And I just want to say this, you might be feeling the squeeze at the moment, and more money in your life might absolutely open up a lot more choices to you. But if you are not a steward with what you have right now, you won't be a steward if you have more. We have to take on the responsibility of making choices with the way we use our finances. Now again, for some people, they don't have choice. They don't have enough for food. They don't have enough for heating. They don't have enough for secure housing. That's a completely different world. That's actually called poverty. And we would love to be able to sit with you and see how we could help you. But if you're not in that situation, you're a steward when you make a choice. You're a slave if you allow yourself to feel like you don't have choices. Second thing, security. Where does my security come from? Do I think that I am entrusted with resources, or am I entrusting myself to my resources? This was a challenge for me. When we got the email from our energy company to go, your utilities bill is now more than doubled from next month, boom, this is what we're taking out. I went into a little bit of a panic because now I'm going, okay, this now means we're not going to be able to maybe put as much aside every month. Okay, actually this means we're going to have to kind of pull back on this. And I suddenly started to panic and go, if this keeps going up but our income doesn't go up, what does that mean for our future? What does that mean for our savings? What about my children and their weddings and their university and then retirement and pension? And instantly went into this kind of spin out. And my wife Liz had to go, Justyn, calm down. There's food in the fridge. We're okay. We're going to have to make some adjustments. But actually our future is not in the hands of our income. It's in the hands of God. And he's entrusted these resources to us, but we entrust our future not into our resources, but into the hands of God. When you're a steward, you understand you've been entrusted with something, but you trust the one who's trusted you. You're a slave if you think, actually, my income needs to be a certain thing in order for my future to be secure. No. We trust our future to God, and we steward what he has given us. But you can't be a steward if you are stuck as a slave. Second thing to think about, be content with the present because he is present. That's what the writer says in Hebrews 13. Be content with now. because he has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. His presence is enough to be content. Do you remember lockdown? And do you remember as things started to shift, the joy of meeting one other person outside for a walk? You're like, oh, it's amazing. Or the ecstasy of 6 of us sitting in the sun, just being able to get 6 people together outdoors to be in each other's presence, just how good that felt. The writer of Hebrews is saying, listen, is God's presence enough for you? Is simply being with him and having him present with you, is that enough? Be content because he is with you. My favourite restaurant, as a shock to the staff team here, it's not actually Nando's, although I eat there a lot. It's Jimmy Spice's, and I've had to stop going to Jimmy Spice's. It is a world all-you-can-eat buffet. And the thing with an all-you-can-eat buffet is that I always eat more than I can eat. I just don't know how to stop. I'm like, oh, there's some pizza, and then you can have noodles, and then you can have like a burger, and then there's some kind of fancy lamb kebab thing going on, and then there's some pasta, which, I don't really like pasta, but hey, it's there, so I've got to eat it. And you have all of that, and you're absolutely stuffed, and you're just like, yeah, I can't fit another thing in. But that butter chicken just looks good, so I'm going to put that in as well. And I can almost hear God saying, if the pizza, the pasta, the lamb kebabs, the burger, the noodles, the lasagna, the lamb thing, if all of that wasn't enough to satisfy you, why do you think the butter chicken is going to? You are absolutely stuffed with stuff, but you're still not content to say enough. It's a real struggle. I always tremble when I have to speak about contentment, because I know my family and those I work with and the friends who are close to me will know I find contentment so hard. I always want the next thing, the next experience, the next challenge, the next thing to own, the next goal to achieve, the next place to be, the next adventure to have. It's always like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. I think so often we live in a life of when. I'll be content when I've got this. I'll be content when this happens. I'll be content when. And God is saying, actually, if you're not content now, you won't be then. I just wonder, for me and for you, if nothing changed now in your financial status from now until glory, if nothing changed, would food, clothing, and the presence of God be enough? Can we come to a point where we say, I'm content, not because I've got everything I think I want, but I'm content because I have the presence of God with me? If we can't be content now, we won't be content when. Last thing to think about as to whether we're a steward or a slave. Last thought, prosperity is having God as your portion. Psalm 16:5, David says this, "The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance." David is evoking this idea of the Levites. So the Levites were the tribe in Israel that God had chosen to serve, to worship him, to serve in the tabernacle, in his tent of meeting, and then in the temple when Solomon built it. And when the Israelites came into their land, God said to Moses, the Levites will not have an inheritance in their land. They won't have towns. They won't own property and land, because I'm their portion. I'm their inheritance. What they get is me. Imagine that. Imagine you watching all the other tribes get their lands, get their farms going, building their houses, getting their business, and there you are kind of having to live amongst them and live off their generosity and rent houses amongst them because you don't own anything, because you have God as your portion. So often I think I look at others getting ahead, I look at others making progress. I look at billionaires who, are avoiding far more in tax than I will ever earn in my lifetime and go, oh, God, it's not fair. But God says, but you have me. I read this psalm, the Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. He holds my lot. He holds my future. He's my security. What does it mean? The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Because here's what I want it to mean. Right, God, if I give, if I tithe, if I keep my life free from the love of money, and I know I'm making choices and I'm generous and I steward well what I have, and I be content with you and your presence, then God, that means you're going to extend my boundary lines. My financial power is going to increase because I've put you first and I'm choosing you. You're going to make things really great for me on earth, aren't you, God? And there is a spiritual process where when you give and when you put God first, he does honor and he does bless you. But that's not the end goal. And that's not what David is saying here. He's not saying I've chosen the Lord, therefore I'll get financial prosperity on earth. He's saying, no, I've chosen the Lord and he is my boundary lines. He is my inheritance. Actually, I'm choosing to steward this well, not because I want things to go better for me on earth, but because I'm choosing God. I'm choosing to make him my portion. I'm actually choosing to say, you and you alone, God, are going to be what satisfies me. Whether, as Paul would say, I abound and I have much, or actually I'm pressed and I have little, my inheritance is amazing because my inheritance is God himself. So I wonder, as we think about the pursuit of godliness, what we are chasing in life, do we understand that everything we have is not ours to own, it's ours to steward? And are we able to keep the mindset of a steward and not the mindset of a slave? Are we able to take responsibility for the choices and the way that we use our finances? Do we trust our future into the hands of God? Are we content? Not because we think we've got everything we need, but because we have God's presence with us. And are we choosing time and time again, God, I choose you to be my fulfillment and nothing else? And I wonder if we can keep working on those three things. How might that affect the way we steward and approach our finances and the things that we have? I said right back at the beginning, if food and clothing and housing aren't a guaranteed for you, why don't you just drop us an email, hello@renewalcc.com. There's many different things that we would just want to help you with and suggest and come alongside you to see you set free from those circumstances. If that's not you, you might be like me, you don't consider yourself rich, but actually the Bible might say something differently. Then let's keep our lives free from the love of money. Let's be content with what we've got, and let's be overwhelmed that the presence of God is with us. And let's be a steward and not a slave. God bless you.
Thanks for joining us for the message here at Renewal. We hope you've been inspired, encouraged, and challenged by what you've heard, and that it will be of great purpose for you and others. This year, we are celebrating Renewal's 50th Jubilee year, which is really exciting for us. To find out how you can get involved, why don't you go to renewalcc.com/50. Yes, that's the big 5-0. If you'd like to know more about what it means to be a Christian, then why not sign up for our Next Steps program? Go to renewalcc.com/next steps, fill out the contact form, and one of our friendly team will be in touch. Don't worry, we won't spam you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our online channels at YouTube, and also you can stay up to date by going to our Renewal podcast at renewalcc.com/media or searching on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Every Monday we'll release a new episode so you can stay right up to date. Finally, if you like the work we do here, you can donate to Renewal by going to renewalcc.com/give. All donations are gratefully received. Have a blessed week ahead, and we will see you soon.